Hey everybody, welcome back to it. Another update, another another bunch of clusters, another bunch of confirmed cases, another bunch of bullshit. So let's start right here. We're gonna look at this. This is from a newspaper clipping in 19 I think it was 1917 in August. And there's talking about the influenza here, the great influenza that killed millions and millions and millions of people. But basically, what I'm pointing at here is that the government, and the board of directors in London were saying that the present influenza is not as severe. And the infection is transmitted by sneezing and coughing, and any general measures of isolation are impractical except the domestic isolation of individual patient, which should always be practiced. As soon as symptoms appear, the patient should go to bed and remain isolated from others for at least 4 to 5 days. Care should be taken to avoid overfatigue and chill during convalescence. Yeah. Anyways, this is from the Spanish flu. August 1918, from the Spanish influenza. And they were saying, well, it's not as severe. It's kind of like a history repeats itself kind of situation. Maybe it sure seems like that anyways, right? There's a ton of breaking news coming out, and a lot of people are still not on board with it. A lot of people are just flat out denying it, right? And calling it a fake, and it's over over popular, I guess, if you want to say. But it's definitely underreported considering what's going on. And most people can't handle that. Most people see what's going on. They see China's locked down. They see all the trades happening, the stock market's crashing. They see all the, cases popping up around their communities, around their states, around their country. Some people just can't do it, right? And they won't. And we know psychology is playing a major role in all of this, because it affects everyone differently. Right? It does. But if you deny what's happening, it's even worse. It's like denying that you're an alcoholic, or denying, something. It's still a state of denial. All right? And people are going to choose what they want to pick out of what's going on. And the media is being very, very vanilla and delivering, the news with a silver tongue, and being very cautious in what they say. And of course, you don't want to panic the public. That's the number one. That's the number one goal right now, on all levels of government. Don't panic the public. So in order to not panic the public, well, you would either have nothing to tell them, or you would have to tell them lies to bend the truth, maybe, in order to achieve your goal, right? Which is not panicking people. So of course they're gonna dummy it down and pretend that it's not so bad and blah 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 blah. But we're seeing this happen like at an alarming rate, and it's been happening at an alarming rate for a long time. I've been following this since day one, and it was alarming since day one. And now that it's gone global, and it's absolutely, well, really, let's call it what it is. It's a pandemic. Nobody wants to call it that, because the World Health Organization says, well, if we call it that, then that means we're giving up. No, it doesn't. You know what I mean? I don't know. But anyways, that just goes to show me that the science is being bent, and it's being played to their advantage. Right? They're manipulating things in such a way as to kind of make people feel secure, with a false sense of security in a time like this. And there's comments from the comment section, like well over 60% are people criticizing the actions taken, the lack of action taken, and that these guys are dropping the ball, that, they're a lot of people are accusing them of taking bribes from China. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. But anyways, a lot of people are just going to deny it, and they will ride that horse right to the end. But here is, this is right from Dr. Tedros, who's the GA, Director General of the World Health Organization. And he says this is not a drill. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time for excuses. This is the time for pulling out all the stops. Well, pulling out all the stops would probably mean putting in all the stops, in my opinion, because if we don't slow the transmission of this, it's only going to continue to spread. And it doesn't take a goddamn rocket scientist or any scientist to know that if we know that this is being passed primarily with human to human contact, we need to eliminate the human to human contact. It's not that hard, but it is on a global stage because there is money involved. If there wasn't money involved, we'd all be just chilling at home on a vacation right now, just relaxing, riding this out. Like, actually I am. I took my own precautions, right? I'm not waiting for these guys to give me any answers or direction on what to do. No, not in a case like this. All right, but anyways, that's as real as it gets, and that's But at the same time, they say that they're a data-driven organization, and the data is wrong. We all know that. And even though it's wrong, they still say we have to go with what the data that we see. And the data that we see, well, it's telling us lies. It's just that simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it now. We know, right? We know that the tests are lacking. For one, that's a major one. And we know that the tests that they sent out were faulty. They had a faulty component in the tests, which also hindered things. And not only that, the massive influx of testing being done. There's backlogs. This stuff isn't just going in and out the door. Like, no, every test needs to be taken with the utmost security, and it just takes time. 72 hours, if I'm not mistaken, for a PCR test on a good day. That's if everything goes right. Right? So, and the amount of PCR tests they're doing right now is at every level. They dropped it down, I think, to a bio level 3 so that they could get more labs testing this. And instead of having it at a bio level 4, which it should be, they changed the criteria of the lab testing and opened it up to level 3 labs as well. And now at community based, right? So, but the tests still aren't there, right? So the data's wrong. It was always wrong. But what's not wrong is our eyes and our ears of what we're seeing in actuality. What we're seeing and what they're telling us are two different things. They are. So BC, I'm from Canada, Prince Edward Island. I'm on an island. God damn it! If I could blow up the bridge, I would. If I had some dynamite, I'd probably just take my chances of being labeled a terrorist. God damn. But it has to stop, right? We need to stop the transportation. We need to stop the travel. Or it's not going to stop. It's just that simple. So BC sees a surge, and Alberta confirms its first case. We got a big jump here in Canada the last 24 hours. Yeah. So among the new diagnosis was a community case. So we now have community transmission confirmed in Canada. So that means person to person transmission in Canada from somebody who has not been outside or been around somebody that they know was infected. But we knew that was happening for a while because there was family members of people who traveled that were infected. But just because they were saying they were family members, they weren't really including that as person to person transmission for some reason, but or community sustained transmission. But actually it is. If somebody comes here and gives it to somebody else, that's, community transmission. But I guess because these people were family members in Canada, they weren't considered. I don't know, whatever. But anyways, this person has no known contacts of anybody, so this is how they're classifying it to be the first community case. So we know that's happening. We know it's happening everywhere. We just haven't picked it up yet. What we're detecting and what's out in the community are two different things. And if we're detecting it, we know it's out there and it's traveling. We don't know where it's at. We really don't. And as much as they want to try to tell us they got a handle on this, they have no idea. They really don't. And they can't mass test people to find out exactly who or where these big clusters might be. All right, so if we're getting community transmission, where's the community transmission coming from? You would have to test hundreds of thousands, let's say, towns and communities, and just take a couple from each one and see if it's there, kind of thing. But we can't even do that. So it's the lack of testing capacity. It's just simple. All right. Also, first person in Seattle, a woman, or first instance in which a person in Seattle woman tested positive after traveling to BC from a neighboring Washington state, which is currently dealing with the outbreak. So this person, goes to BC, comes back to Seattle, tests positive. Did she get it in Seattle? Did she get it in BC? There's a lot of questions, but we can't answer them. But there's nothing being done to, they're going on the data, right? Everything's data. They're not going on what a variable could be on this. We need to be checking the variables. We need to understand that we're not catching every case. This thing is obviously ridiculously infectious. And we don't know, there's cases where this has gone through apartment buildings in China and hospitals and nursing homes in the States. It's in the hospitals in the States. It's infecting the schools in the States now. One of the first cases was a teacher who was teaching at a school. It was in California somewhere. But we haven't heard anything about that yet. Nothing. But you can guarantee that she was teaching. And she was infected before she actually took time off. And now there's another case that is like that as well. I'm not sure, I think I do have it marked somewhere, but somebody went to work at a school for one day is what they said. For one day. And then she went home and didn't go back to school, didn't go back to work the next day. So she was infectious at school. She was a teacher teaching, obviously. She went to school for one day. She infected people at that school, guaranteed. Because if she didn't go to work the next day, if she was feeling that bad, obviously the day before she definitely would have been infectious. We have to assume that, right? Or even at least maybe a week before, considering the asymptomatic transmission. But they're saying that this isn't a primary driver. The data says that this is not a primary driver in transmission, is asymptomatic transmission when you don't have the symptoms. They're saying that's not the main transmission. How do they know that? They don't. They actually don't, but that's what the data says. But where's all the 90% of the data so far has came out of China? And if you believe everything that's coming out of China, well, I'm sorry, man. No, you can't. They don't have tests. They ran out of tests a month ago. They're so full of shit. That's why they changed their testing criteria way back, and the cases spiked like 10,000 in one day. Remember that? They started doing the CT scans with the chest scans, and they were just doing symptomatic diagnosis. basically, and confirming them that way, and it went to 10,000. The reason why they did that is because they ran out of tests. They had no way to test, so that's obviously what they had to do. But then, all of a sudden, we have this magical facility that can just make, tests overnight, and then they changed their methods. It's so bad right now. It is. And you got to realize this. You got to realize that you need to take your own self and your own personal safety, your own family's personal safety into consideration right now. Don't worry about what these guys are saying, right? Because they're still telling us to go to work and that the level is low in communities like where there's outbreaks happening and cases are doubling and tripling every day in the States. And they're telling people, no, don't worry, go to work, go to Subway, do your thing, go out, drink, party, whatever you want to do. Why? That makes no sense. They have no plan, is what's going on. It's a fine line to balance between our economy, our transportation hub, our chains of everything, global connectedness. Everything's connected to like this big web, and we're losing legs. And we're so dependent upon that now. In modern day society, we're so dependent upon this very, very, I guess, fragile, you could even say, yeah, it's unbelievable how fragile our whole planet is when it comes to being functional in a connected type of way, where it's a functioning system, where there's products coming in, there's global commerce, there's, it's a very, very fine thing to balance right now, and now we got a health problem that's of epic proportions, and we got people that are only going on numbers that are actually very wrong. And like, come on, they know that, but they're obviously a very policy-driven, overly bureaucratic organization. They will stick to the books, and the world could be burning down around them, and it is, literally. And they're still claiming that it's all good. Don't worry about it, because the numbers, the data's not showing this. The numbers say this. The numbers say. What about the numbers that we're not catching? Why haven't they never addressed the possibility that we're not even catching all the cases? They can't address that because, well, why? Because then that's a big variable that can just spawn a whole, tangent of possibilities. And we're seeing that. And they don't want to touch on that subject because that is an open concept, or that's an open door. That's not a closed door statement that they can give, right? So, and everything that they tell us is very highly vetted before they speak to us. So Ontario, tally rises to 24 in Ontario alone, and this jumped pretty quick, right? So this is interesting. Another 4 cases of COVID in Ontario were reported Thursday. Ontario's top doctors said there's no need to hoard hand sanitizer. Like, here they go again, minimizing everything, right? We see this shit melting down. It's in Italy, they have, their healthcare is already maxed out. They don't know what to do. They're building, like China did, they're repurposing other buildings for quarantine zones. Because the healthcare is actually just exploded, and they got a shit ton of healthcare workers that are quarantined as well and infected, and police officers and firemen. The whole fucking goddamn place is infected. It really is. And we're just gonna sit here and watch and no, you can't do that, because for some reason these assholes are trying to run us into the ground. I'm almost sure of it, right? No, it doesn't seem like that, but it is. It's bureaucrats and it's policy and procedure, and the numbers are wrong. That's why it's so fucked. It's because these people are so concrete in these numbers that every scientific model, every thing that we could possibly predict is off. And not just a little bit, it's way, way off. Trust me. You know, all you have to do is just know the news and see what's happening everywhere. It's absolutely shit show level events going on. And they're saying, no, don't worry about it, which is even more concerning. Right? So, again, downplaying it. Anyways, and he's saying also, you know, toilet paper is one of the biggest things to be going. I don't know, but I don't know if you're gonna fry up some fucking toilet paper, some fried toilet paper and fucking sandwiches or something. But yeah, I get it. You know, toiletries are kind of important, but when push comes to shove, toilet paper takes up a lot of room in your car. And like, if you have the options to get a lot more food, well, you know, I'd take my chances with just wiping my arse with some rags or something. Like back in the old days, Cottonelle. Some leaves. I don't know. I guess it's winter time where I am, so there's not too many leaves. You could like do it like a snow douche. You could definitely do a snow douche. You know, it'd be all right. Refreshing. But toilet paper, obviously, you know, is a big thing. I did go out and get some as well, but I didn't stock up like that. I got 48 rolls. 48 rolls should be good enough, I'm sure. I got two 24 packs. So anyways, you know, new cases popping up across Canada. 8 were reported in British Columbia on Thursday evening alone, including the first instance of community transmission in that province. Well, we know it's happening. Just because they detect it doesn't mean that it wasn't happening before. You gotta realize that this has been going for about 3 months now, maybe 4 months. And the travel from China was like just full out everywhere, all over the world. So obviously there was a lot of more cases that were imported than we think. And they know that. But they're not going to say that because why? Panic. Of course, panic. It's absolutely, it just drives me batshit crazy to watch some of these news broadcasts and actually from the CDC and you know, any of the health commissions, like they're it's hard to watch. It is, because they seem like they're so stupid, but they're not. They have to play stupid because that's all they have to do is go on the numbers, and the numbers, well, they still say that they're low, right? But now we have community transmission confirmed in Canada. Well, if it's happening in BC, it's probably happening in a lot of other places. We're just not detecting it yet. Right? Unbelievable. And another case is reported in Quebec. So Quebec's got 2 cases now. And if they got 2 cases, they got a dozen. And if they got a dozen, well, you know, they probably got a couple dozen. And it just exponentially increases like that. But how long was this going on? How long was this person out there being infectious to people before, you know, she could have infected alone dozens of people? Just this one person themselves. Not to include all the other, maybe possibly now dozens of people infected out there, infecting hundreds. And those hundreds will infect thousands. See, it's probably at the thousands. We're just not catching it as good, because this has symptoms like the flu. You show symptoms that are no different than the flu. And with all the hype around this now, I'm not sure if most people would go to the hospital. I wouldn't go to the hospital unless it was like last minute. Because just for the fact, if I didn't have it and I went to the hospital, and let's say there was somebody at the hospital who was contagious and has it. We know now that medical personnel were infectious and giving it to patients. So you take your chances, right? But not everybody's going to go run into the hospital because they got a fever and a cough. And just because people are calling these numbers, like there's health lines that you can call in different provinces and different states, and they'll give, if you think you have this kind of thing or whatever, and they'll give you advice, but they're not giving those numbers out, of course not, because they're not confirmed and it's just speculative. But I wonder, people down in we're going to get into this in a minute here, but in the United States, they're calling these numbers and they're on hold for like hours to try and get through. So that just goes to show you the call volume that's happening. So Toronto revealed Thursday night is a person who traveled to Las Vegas for an international conference. So this person traveled to Vegas according to an internal email sent to the University Health Network. The person went to an emergency department in Toronto Western Hospital Wednesday with respiratory symptoms. So were they, it says all protocols were followed and the patient was assessed and sent home to self-isolate. Okay, this person's infectious, right? Okay, and they're sent home. Did they live in an apartment? Did they touch a doorknob going into the apartment? Did they stop and get gas somewhere and touch a gas handle? Did they... A million things, variables about how this person could spread it to other people. And not just this one person. What about the thousands of people literally in quarantine right now in the United States and Canada? Right? On voluntary quarantine. We're not hearing about those numbers, but there's a few thousand. If not tens of thousands, but I don't think they have the manpower to do that kind of legwork. They can do contact tracing so far. Yes, I'm sure they're trying to do all they can, but of course, it comes down to your network of communication. And if you if you don't have people to man those networks, it's tough, right? So anyways, the patient is home and they're continually monitoring the process. Yeah. Another new Ontario case involves a Waterloo region woman in her 50s who recently returned from Italy, where there is a huge outbreak. Yes, we know that. The second man who had recently been to Iran. Or the second is a man who recently been to Iran. So, we were having flights coming in from Iran and Italy nonstop until like a day ago or 2 days ago. They started, the flights are still coming in, but they're being, I guess, quarantined now or something. But still, the flights are coming in and people are getting infected. This thing is viciously viral. We have no idea what it is. We don't. And we're only aiding the transmission of this by not doing anything about it. So don't be one of those people, because they're basically going to run by the numbers and they're going to run this rate and they're going to ride this thing right out as far as they can with the number game. And that's what they said. They said that they are a data-driven, factual-based organization, the World Health Organization and the CDC. And the CDC basically takes all their information from WHO. So, these people are going by numbers that aren't right. But we see what's happening. And people are stocking up with good reason. But they're becoming more alarmed that they're not being told the truth and they see what's happening, which is even worse. That's what happened in China. And then the people lost fucking, China's a whole different story, communist country and all. But, and for whatever the reasons were in delaying the process, it still cost time. And before they knew it, it fucking exploded. And that's exactly what's going to happen anywhere else if they don't do something. It's just the way it is. It's only getting worse. And they're still saying don't worry about it. So this here, Toronto condo residents warn that security staff just tested positive for the coronavirus. So, you got the front desk guy at this fucking security place and, he's doing his rounds, doing his checks, possibly infecting, we don't know if he was infected. There could be dozens of people infected in here. And if we don't know if there's a gym in this some of these big complexes, they have community areas and gyms and common areas kind of things. A lot of them have activities that fucking go on and all kinds of crazy shit, right? We don't know, but if there's a security guy there, you can almost guarantee that there's going to be people there that are infected. Unbelievable, right? This is how easy it starts, because you don't know who has it. You don't. All you have to do is be, you just be cautious, extra cautious. Stay away from people. That's basically all you have to do is, it's everybody's in a different situation, right? And it's crazy. Yeah, and Canada's shifting, into pre-pandemic planning. Well, that should have been done probably like a month ago when we knew this thing was, on the doorstep of China, or on the doorstep of, North America coming out of China. 2 months ago we should have been doing this, but no. Oh, it seems so slack. Let's check out this video. This is a cool video. They're delivering medical kits to this cruise ship that's now infected because they won't let this cruise ship dock. There's another cruise ship. Yes, it's another one. This is the Grand Princess, not the princess. Not the Diamond Princess, or some people call it the Petri dish, or the Disaster Princess. But anyways, this is the Grand Princess. We can call this the Grand Disaster Princess. But anyways, here we got the National Guard taking in some kits. They don't want these people even coming to fucking shore. Like, everything's locked down, right? Everything's locked down there. I don't think he should have got on that ship. Like, his fucking boots could be infected now. We don't know. Somebody spit on there. Like, somebody could have definitely spit on there. Right? Now it's on his boot. Possibly. Right? Possibly. And then he takes it on his boot, back onto the helicopter, infects his buddies, and it could happen. Oh my fuck. Do you see what's going on here? Like, do you realize, like, this isn't on a movie. Like, that's, like, and we see on the side, Princess Cruises, down here in the corner. Yep. That's some shit, man. That's some shit. So this here, we just don't know, right? This infected guy attends a fucking rock concert in New Zealand. Like, look at that. That's the concert that he was at. Like, look at the people there. How many close contacts? Was he in the mosh pit? I don't know if it was a mosh concert or something, but we don't know. But health authorities said the man's in his 30s. Come on, beat it. He went to a Tool concert. Oh my fuck. Maynard's probably like fucking home and scrubbing his balls. Oh my fuck, could you imagine? Maynard's all about that weird fucking shit too, eh? Like, yeah. Fucking genius though. Maynard's the lead singer of Tool. But anyway, yeah, this guy goes to a Tool concert and he's infected. That's rough, man. You know, how many people? But that's just one instance. There could be hundreds of instances like this happening. Right? There really could. And look, the Bernie Sanders in California, where California has a fucking outbreak right now. They really do. They got a straight up outbreak. There's like 20 cases in California. This was yesterday. Wow, eh? Outbreak in California. Like, yeah, exactly. Stop having rallies. Like, it's only a matter of time before. Oh, that's rough. That's rough. And nobody's doing nothing about it, right? San Francisco reports first two cases that are both result community spread. Ain't that some shit? Coronavirus in India. This is fucked too. 36 of the 88. Hey, come on now. What happened there? Sign in to unlock benefits. Beat it. I don't want no benefits. 36 of the 88 people in contact with this person at a tech show are showing symptoms. But it's not to say that they all contracted it from this guy, but this guy had it. They tested 88 people who came in contact with him, and 36 people have symptoms, I guess. So, but India's got a big outbreak. It's not just to say they got it just from him. It's, they got a big problem on their hands. Yeah, Maryland declares a state of emergency after just 3 cases. 3 cases. State of emergency. But state of emergency in the United States is like something that they can access funds. They have to declare a state of emergency to get money, I guess. And Chinese authorities told people to stay away from the border in North Korea or risk being shot. Seems logical. Yes, that's what every country should be doing. Stay the fuck away from the border or you will be shot. I'm sorry, but it almost needs to come to that now. But I think if everybody was on board with where this is or how dangerous this is, I think people would just take that into their own handling, right? They would just say, okay, yeah, no, that's not cool enough for me. Staying away from this. The World Health Organization, they gave an update today. Oh, it was just sad. It really was. Like, the information, just disgusting. Anyway, they're going by the numbers, right? That's why it's so disgusting, because there's such a data-driven organization that, even though the numbers are wrong, they're still going to go by them because that's all they have for actual data. But we know that's wrong. Canada prepares for potential coronavirus outbreak, and opposition slams the secretary. Let's listen to what this is.
The job of this committee is to ensure that Canada is ready and prepared for all eventualities, and we are. This is a whole of government and indeed a whole of country effort. We take the COVID-19 outbreak very seriously, and we are very aware that this is a situation, as Minister Haidu has just explained, which is evolving rapidly day by day and indeed hour by hour. Our first priority,
I'd say second by second, minute by minute now.
Safe. That is what we will do. I'd like to stress 3 further points that should give Canadians confidence.
Are they the glycoprotein spikes? I think a lot of Canadians are going to get those points.
First, we have one of the best healthcare systems in the world.
I'm going to stop you there for a minute. Does that face look like that's believable? Do you believe that face? I sure as fuck don't. And even though that, yes, we do have very good healthcare system here, and it's free and it's great, it's already stressed right to the nuts, and every Canadian knows that. Yeah, it is. The most of the hospitals are full. It's not like we just got empty hospitals waiting for this. No, we don't. It's going to stress every point of entrance in our society. And it's going to stress our healthcare systems and our front line beyond anything that it's going to be like. You won't be able to contain it unless they start setting up some kind of FEMA camps or like, I don't know. They got to do something because they shouldn't even put people in the hospitals. They really shouldn't. If you got this, they should be testing them somewhere else. Because if you get this in the hospital, you're fucked. It doesn't matter. It's not like you can evacuate a whole fucking hospital and do deep cleaning. It'll rip through there like wildfire, and it already has. We know that, right? But these people are just shitting the bed. Like, but anyway, like, I don't know. I don't. It sure seems like it, right?
And we have among the best healthcare professionals in the world.
What if they get sick? But we know the healthcare professionals all in China. There's like thousands that died. There really is. The numbers, it's unbelievable. And, tens of thousands infected. It's unbelievable. Japan, like, just look at Japan, and like, they got a big problem with the healthcare system there. Big problem. Not only did most of the nurses go on strike, they got it in the hospital there as well.
I am very confident in our ability as a country to deal with this.
So this is one person saying that she's confident. Does that look like a confident face? Like, she's biting her tongue right there. But that's all they can say. What do you really expect them to come out and be like, well, fuck, this is it, so get ready? Well, they kind of are. But at the same time, they're paving the road with rose-colored, or like, I don't know, fucking giving us a vision through rose-colored glasses or something, right? It's like, yeah, it pisses me off because it gives people a false sense of security, and it's, well, anyway, let's hope I'm wrong, right? I hope I'm wrong.
And I would really like to thank and recognize the exceptional leadership of my colleague and friend, our Minister of Health.
Let's thank each other.
And of course, our Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Teresa Tam. They have been, as Minister Haidu has just said, working very, very intensely on this situation for months. They have been keeping the entire government, starting with the Prime Minister and the provinces, extremely well informed. And I must say, their predictions of where things would be going have proven to be very, very accurate.
Their predictions, right? So where's it going? Does your risk of coronavirus exposure increase on public transit? If you even need to ask that question and address that question, like, we're in big trouble here. Fuck. Oh my god. I don't even need to read that article. We're not going to read it because that's just, deflating in the sense like that. Really? Oh my god. I think everybody knows, that. I hope everybody knows. But nobody really understands the gravity of the situation, of how viral this is. It's not the flu. It's not transmit like the flu. Or I should say, it is transmit like the flu, but it's not infecting us like the flu does. This infects us the same way that HIV infects us. I'm telling you, straight up. That's how it is. It uses these ACE2 receptors, it uses CD4 receptors, it uses these binding proteins that are highly highly suspicious in this virus itself. That's why a lot of scientists are talking about it. But the fact that this here can infect us, and it's targeting our immune system. That's why we're having multi-organ failure with this, right? Because it's not only invading our system, it's hitting our immune system, and it's doing it in such a way that it can hide from our body. It can turn on and off its messaging signals to be detected by our body. And that's why some people are getting better. They're not getting reinfected like some people think. No, they're not. This here is reinfecting people, or sorry, it's reactivating and infecting people again. It's you don't get rid of this. And how do I know that? How do I know that? Well, let's just see what these guys say. Ontario Health Commission.
The other main update is that with this change, as of this past Monday, we are no longer sending negative specimens tested at the Public Health Ontario lab to the National Lab for concurrent testing. The rationale is that we've already done the duplicate testing to validate our testing that's available, and also it makes sure that testing results are available to clinicians and public health practitioners much more quickly. And so the turnaround time is now less than 24 hours, whereas we had a longer time in order to accommodate the duplicate testing at the National Lab. The positives, or the presumed positives that are tested at Public Health Ontario, would still be sent to the National Lab for concurrent testing for further workup and understanding of those results.
The new testing, Dr. Allen, I was wondering, this first couple that came back, what's the holdup if they're, like Dr. Yaffe said, they're not clinically ill anymore, they probably are fine. Why are the tests not showing them clear? Do they still have a viral load, or what's up with that?
Yeah, so there is some genetic material or viral material left in the individual specimens. We don't know what that means, whether
There's still some genetic material left in the specimens, and they don't know what that means. But wait, let's see what they think it means.
know what that means, whether that's live or dead virus.
Whether that's live or dead virus. So they don't know what that means, why the virus is still in the sample, but it's showing negative. I know why. Because it's gone into a remissive state or a sleep state. And people aren't getting reinfected with this when they get ill again. This is always in our system. We don't get rid of this. There is something very peculiar going on with this virus. And people are totally oblivious to what's happening. Totally oblivious. Most people. Some people got a good idea. But for the most part, not many people are aware of the gravity of what's happening on a cellular level and a scientific level with this virus. We see the news. And we see that people trashed all these reports, you know, these initial reports coming out in these studies and blah, blah. Well, let's just see. Let's go back here. When it's a real situation and things are real, that's what people are going to do. Most people will, unfortunately, to some extent. They will try to downplay it in their mind to rationalize why they want to go out and get drunk, why they want to go to their friends, why they want to go to a concert, why they want to go wherever. That's how it happens. Unless these people come out and give us some direct information, which they're not going to. Because, again, they're a data-driven organization. And the data obviously is wrong. We know that. Fuck, you don't Oh my god. No, it's wrong. And not only is the data that we're collecting probably wrong, it's what we're not collecting that's even more scary. Because the amount of testing that needs to be done is impossible to do. It's just not there. We could throw every goddamn penny on this planet at it right now, and we wouldn't be able to test to the capacity that we need to for at least a few months. And by then, like we should have been on top of this a few months ago. Measures should have been taken a few months ago to lock this down, but no. Do you know why? Economy and the numbers that were coming in. So they were making these data forecasts off numbers that were very low and holding them to concrete value as if that's all there was on this planet and there was no more happening anywhere. You know, it wasn't even taken into a consideration that there could be, you know, let's say even a quarter of the cases being missed. You know, and that wasn't taken in. They're running on these numbers 100%. And the numbers are wrong. And our models are wrong. Our risk assessments are wrong. But they love that. They do, because it keeps the economy going. Most people don't consider this a fucking health problem. They consider it an economical crisis. At the highest levels, right? At the big players, you know, when their stocks are trashing and like, you know, they're losing hundreds of thousands, millions a day, you know, these investors. What do you think they're betting on? That's when science comes out of the equation. Because we have these big fucking players who are making the decisions at the highest levels, who are driven by financial means more than anything right now. And they will cherry pick every report they can that is going to minimize a risk on this, or find a way to minimize any report that comes out. And the World Health Organization is making that very easy for them to do. Trudeau, warning against knee-jerk reactions as Canada issues travel advisory. Well, let's just see what they said. I didn't actually read this yet. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says knee-jerk reactions to the coronavirus will not keep people safe, as he defended Canada's decision not to close borders and foreign nationals coming from regions where the outbreak is spreading. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, probably from Italy, maybe Iran, maybe South Korea, I don't know, like, you know, obviously regions where the outbreak is spreading, he's not too worried about that, people coming in. So, and then, oh look, misinformation being spread about the virus, which can cause a respiratory, is having negative impacts on some communities, keeping their populations safe. Oh my fuck. This is classic. This is classic. I swear to God, it's classic.
That the World Health Organization is somehow in bed with pharmaceutical companies?
Because they are.
What is happening? We're going to stay focused. Yeah, we're going to stay focused on doing the things that actually matter. What's that? Empowering Canadians to make the right decisions for their own health, for their family's health. Listening to experts who are formulating forecast models on data that is wrong. Hey, it is what it is. Fuck. It hurts a little bit. It does. To watch it unfold and see it happening, it's, you know, and you know what the worst part of it is? This is going to be the worst part. When they finally decide that they really should do something, like, and then when everybody finally decides it's time to do something, you're right. It's going to be too late. That's how it's going to happen. Because obviously, they're focused on doing the right things, and the things that actually matter are, keeping the borders open from regions where the outbreak is currently spreading. That's what we need to do. That makes a lot of sense there, buddy. We know that keeping Canadians safe needs to be done in the right way. And we're not going to keep doing things that actually... Oh my god. Look, there it is again. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Is there? I'd love for them to do a segment on a misinformation segment and debunk some of the actual things. I want to hear these things. And I want them to prove scientifically about, I do. And I want them to address them individually. Let's see what's out there. Obviously, there's a lot of misinformation, so pick something. Make a broadcast about it. You know why they're not. Because they're just full of shit. There is misinformation going around the internet. Of course there is. It's the internet, for fuck's sakes. God damn it. But, obviously you're gonna pick and choose what's most valid, right? Scientific studies, well, most valid. Politicians, well, not so much. No, not so much. Montreal woman who tested positive is back in her home after medical evaluation. Just so you know, she's back in her home. Is it an apartment? Is it a home? Does she put out her garbage? Is she, there's so many questions we could ask about how cross-contamination could happen to somebody that goes to her home. What if some kid's selling fucking cookies or, something for school and goes and knocks on the fucking door or tries to open the door or something and touches the door and boom, infected. Is their house like monitored? Is people like stationed outside there? Is there signs saying, do not, quarantine in effect or something to that measure? No, there's not. It's just a random house somewhere on the block that you would never know anything of. And if you approached it, you could probably risk getting infected if she opened the door. So, you see how stupid this is, right? You need to take your own safety and do what you need to do. Because these people aren't going to tell you. They're going to run this right into the ground because they're holding on to these numbers that are false. And when time comes, if anything, they're just going to say, well, the data was wrong. So how could we make, accurate forecasts? And, we'll just blame it on the data. Nobody's responsible. So this is interesting. A recovered patient dies. And that was like I was saying earlier. You get this, you got it. It doesn't go away. No matter what they're saying, people are recovering. Yes, they might be going from like needing hospitalization, to recovering to the point that they don't need hospitalization. But the testing coming back negative, I don't know. I don't believe that they're actually negative because, in the video earlier, we listened to the Ontario Public Health Minister say that there's still a viral load inside the samples and that they don't know what that means and that they don't know if it is dead or a live virus. But I'm pretty sure just because of the way this infects our cells on such a level, it has this ability to hide itself. It really does. And actually, let's just check out this quick little video. Well, I'll show you. It's kind of cool anyway. Where the hell is stuff? There he is. See what this guy's got to say. He's got some pretty cool stuff
Some of
to
the
say.
molecules coronaviruses use to infect human cells.
All right.
So I'm particularly interested in Wuhan coronavirus, which is the cause of the ongoing epidemic in China and is spreading around the world right now. Let's take a look at what a Wuhan coronavirus looks like in electron microscopy. So
Okay.
each of the three ones.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to cue this up right, but just bear with me here. But he's going to show us that it has the ability in these proteins. This is not the virus itself. This one here, this is the spike protein. This is a 3D generation of the protein spike that basically is the communication device to our cells so that it can infect our cells. When this thing can speak multiple languages, it can infect multiple cells, right? On a cellular level. But this thing does something very unique. Like the HIV virus does. It can go into remission. But it has these properties to turn itself on and off and be detected or undetected within the body. So,
has a cutting point, and what they observe is this green copy, the top half with the ACE2 floats away, and then the red and the blue, they don't have ACE2, only one of them. These become unstable. They no longer stay attached of the spike.
Okay, just one sec.
What's going on in Wuhan coronavirus? So everything I'm showing you.
Okay, yeah. So this is the Wuhan coronavirus. This is the next one. We'll just run this through here. I've seen this, so I'm going to go grab a quick cigarette. But basically what you want to take away here is that there's going to be a pivot point on this spike protein, and he's going to show it, and it's going to pivot up and down. And that there allows it to turn on and off. Okay? And what we're talking about, people, back here about recovering, right? This is what we're talking about, recovered patients. He dies, and he falls ill again. Right? And he's a 36-year-old man. Died in Wuhan from respiratory failure days after being discharged from the hospital. And he got it again, right? So, but the virus is going into a dormant state, a sleep state, and that's why we're getting people testing negative for this, but then there's some kind of biological process that will reactivate this later on down the road. And we don't know when the person becomes infectious again. We don't know when the symptomatic starts, but usually the second infection of this is, worse than the first one. We're seeing that now in other scientific studies.
Is for SARS. We don't have the structures for Wuhan coronavirus, but one thing we can do is we can look at the difference between this SARS virus and Wuhan virus, because we know the chemical structure of the Wuhan virus from its genetic code. So let me color the differences between the two. Let's see, I have a little button I made to do that. There we go. So I colored every part of this green molecule, 1/3 of the spike, orange if it was different between the Wuhan and the SARS virus. So you see, it looks like a lot of orange. It's only about 25%. It's about 75% identity. This is a high amount of identity. Proteins in your body are 70% identical. Generally, they function nearly exactly the same. Okay, but it would be really want to look at here is sort of the really important part here, where it's attaching to this ACE2 molecule. We see a lot of orange at the interface between the two. And that would make me suspect that this isn't quite right. Wuhan virus. SARS virus and Wuhan virus are probably a bit different here. And in fact, if I only had this evidence, I would probably think that Wuhan virus wasn't even using this ACE2. Okay, because there are so many differences right there. But experiments that were done in the last few weeks already confirmed that Wuhan virus indeed is using ACE2. Okay, but we can expect that our model based on SARS is going to be a little bit off because there are a lot of differences in the critical location where it binds. All right, I want to show you one last thing, and that is, what can your immune system do to fend off this virus? So here's another structure. again, of SARS, because we don't have the equivalent one for Wuhan. It's the spike. And instead of the red, blue, green coloring, I made it all white because I wanted you to focus on this colored part at the top. Okay, the orange is the differences, all the locations where there are differences between the Wuhan virus and SARS. And at the top, these colored blobs are antibodies. These are things your immune system produces. These are fragment antibodies, like the light green and the olive. This is a light chain and heavy chain. An actual antibody in your body is about twice as big as this, but this is a fragment that they use in experiments because it's simpler to work with. So there are 3 antibodies, 3 pairs here. I've colored them differently, again, just to see, to easily distinguish them, but they're the same antibody. It's an antibody called S230. It came from a patient who survived SARS. And you see that it binds at the tip of the spike, right near where the ACE2 would bind. And this is a neutralizing antibody. And by covering the spikes of the SARS virus with the antibody, the ACE2 isn't able to bind, and then the virus isn't able to recognize cells and infect them. Okay, so this is a mechanism your immune system uses to fight off the virus. If it can't get into your cells, then it can't reproduce. All right. One other thing that I told you I was going to come back to was these sugars. And I've colored them pink in this structure, and they're all over the surface. And these sugars are a technique viruses often use to defend themselves against the immune system. Your cells in your body and proteins, molecules on the surface of your cells, like the ACE2, often have sugars coating them. And so your immune system does not generate an attack against sugars generally, because then it would end up attacking your own body. So the spike here has disguised itself with all these sugars. But the problem is, up where it needs to recognize the host cell, it can't put sugars there because they would be in the way. They would prevent the recognition with ACE2. And so that's a vulnerable part. And so that's where we see this antibody bound. Okay. When I showed you earlier that the tips of the spikes, the 3 copies were folded in, that may be.
Okay, now what he's saying there about the copies folded in, I did cue this up wrong. When they fold in, it's like it's going into like it's undetectable, and then it opens up. It unfolds these little receptors, and it kind of looks to see if there's any cells around that it can infect, and then it kind of closes them again. Right, and they go up and down at different times, but basically what that there is saying, yeah, and I did cue it up wrong because there's another part where he's showing the action of it opening and closing, and it's a long video, and I'm not gonna go through all that right now, but it does. Let's just continue. He might show it again.
A mechanism to disguise the virus from these antibodies and from the immune system. It keeps them folded in, hidden from view, and only occasionally flips them out to see if there's an ACE2 molecule nearby.
So there it is. It can hibernate. So that brings us back to this, right? Patient falls ill again. And there are more cases of this. People getting reinfected. And people are saying that there's 2 different strains. Actually, well, you know, a lot of scientists are saying this now, that there's 2 different strains going around, and people can get infected with both strains. And I think when the 2 strains combine, it's making mutants, and it's much worse. I think that's what's maybe happening as well. But this has the ability to go to sleep. So when we test people that think that they're coming back negative, they're actually not negative, because the virus is still in the system. The viral load is still in the system, and we know that from here, right? And they say it.
The other main update is that with this change,
hold on.
Or the presumed
Go to question.
ill anymore. They probably are fine. Why are the tests not showing them clear? Do they still have a viral load, or what's up with that?
Yeah, so there is some genetic material or viral material left in the individual specimens. We don't know what that means, whether that's live or dead virus.
The virus is sleeping. That's what it means. And for whatever reason, it can reactivate. And that's what's happening here. It's not people getting reinfected. Because if somebody gets infected with this and gets actually cured, your body produces an immune response that you would not get reinfected with this right away. The chances of that happening would be super astronomical for that to happen. And it's the same situation of how this virus itself has acquired these specific abilities to infect our cells in a very specific way that is very similar to HIV, and it transmits like the flu. It infects us like HIV, but it transmits like the flu. But not just like the flu, but this is aerosol now. And we know that it can live up to surfaces for quite a while. This virus is very resilient. It's very strong. We know that it's super infectious. It's ripping through the world in a matter of weeks. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about how only like 8 weeks ago we really started covering this, but now it's all over the world. Almost every corner of the world except Antarctica. So, very viral, very infectious, highly suspicious. Nature doesn't do this shit. I don't care. Nature follows an evolutionary path. And the closest relative we can find to this specific...
From coast to coast, the coronavirus appears to be gaining traction.
Listen, bud, I was about to say something important. Now I forgot what it was. Fuck's sakes. I smoke way too much weed. See, he interrupted me. Oh, god damn it. But anyways, what was I saying? Something about weed? No, viruses? Fuck. Smoke another one, for fuck's sakes. But yeah, so it's very viral. I guess that's where topic I was on. And it's spreading ridiculously fast. And it has these abilities that we've never seen in any other virus to date. And it's super strong. And it's only getting stronger. And some people say, you know, like, I've seen in the comments they're saying, like, you know, it's already too late. Well, it's too late to stop it, yes, by even, you know, but it's not too late for people that aren't infected, who probably have a good chance of not being infected, to somehow, you know, maybe migrate to a fucking safe zone. I don't know if that needs to happen. Does that need to happen? But then who would you pick out, right? Everybody would be running for the safe zone. Hey, I don't got it. Let me in. Fuck, right? It's a shitty situation. It's a logistical nightmare for every level. You know, the preppers are sitting back in their fucking are just, you know, the people who've been preparing, you know, for years, who prepare for natural disasters and prepare for big events, you know, that most people call them crazy, are going to sit back and just like be high on the fucking hog when shit hits the fan here, because unfortunately we're going that direction. And since this guy interrupted me so fucking politely, let's just see what he's got to say.
Civic concern. Correspondent David Lee Miller takes a look tonight from New York.
11 New York City area residents have now tested positive for the virus.
The daughter is
this afternoon, the governor announcing 5 new confirmed cases, all from a family who had contact with a 50-year-old lawyer who remains in stable condition at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital on the city's west side. As a precaution, 2 schools where the infected lawyer's kids attended class have temporarily shut down, as well as a synagogue where the family attended services. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says research and investigation prevent the virus from spreading.
Whenever you find a case, it's about containment and doing the best you can to keep the circle as tight as possible.
Authorities in Placer County, California.
Okay, they say, you know, it's all about containment, keep the circle tight as possible, but where's the circle? How do you define where the circle is? Do these guys got some ability that we can magically see the virus? You know, where is it? They can't even test it. Jesus Christ, they only did 500 tests. It was last week, the United States only had 500 tests completed in total. And then stopped disclosing the numbers on the CDC website about the amount of people that are being tested after the doctor went on national TV and was screaming like, hey, I don't got the tools to do my job here. Like, something needs to be done. And then they said, well, don't worry, we got 1 million tests and we got all these laboratories and don't worry, fuck everything, we're the best. Well, why wasn't that happening before? I'm just curious, if we had all these capabilities, you know, why wasn't it happening before? That's so full of shit. These guys still can't test. There's only a couple of 100 tests, like, available in the biggest cities in the United States. Canada, we're not sure what the testing capacity is. South Korea obviously is leading the fucking pack, and Italy as well. South Korea, I think Thailand. I don't know if it's Thailand or Singapore, somewhere down there. They developed their own testing kit. Like they've made it, and it's, I guess, 99% accurate. It's very good, and it's only like, it's like a 3-hour test or 6-hour test or something. It's very fast. But that hasn't been scaled up yet. You know, it's only been developed, right? So the amount of time it would take to mass produce this, you know, they're going to think of their own people first before they start exporting this shit to other countries. You know, even though people might be throwing money at it, it's like, well, no, we got to test our people first. We're going to develop these kits. We're going to make these kits available to our people. And then, you know, as production ramps up, then we'll start distributing them around the world, right? But that's going to take time. That's time we don't have. That's just, we don't have it. And you got to realize that we don't have the time. It's done. The time is over. Like, it's time to head for the hills if you have that option. You know, if you got a cabin somewhere, you know, and you don't mind just going and chilling for like a little while, get a radio, get some, whatever you need to do, stay up to date. But, fuck, man, I don't know. It's traveling so fast. And now it's saying it's mutating. And they have identified a more aggressive strain. Well, did it... I have a very highly skeptical view about that, because let's just, it very well could be, but I think that it's just been the same all along. They're just claiming that it's going to be worse now, that there's just a worse one going around, blah 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 blah, but it was always worse. It's the same thing. It hasn't changed at all. It's changing its signature in a little way, but it's operation, and it's, you know, everything that's the inner workings is not changing in the virus. It's stable. And the World Health Organization said that. Tedros came out and said that the genome is stable, which is concerning, because it shouldn't be stable, considering it's a coronavirus, which would naturally mutate. That's just the facts, and that's science. That's the amount of people that this is infected by now, and the chances of it mutating, like coronavirus is mutated. They're one of the fastest mutating viruses there is. So why is it not mutating? It must be structurally stable for some reason. How did it gain this structural stability to only change certain signatures of the virus itself? Like maybe like, in a sense, changing the license plate on your car. You know, it's not going to really change that it's a car, but, you know, changing the license plate, it's just giving it a different signature. That's what the virus is doing. It's just changing a little bit. Enough that they can kind of track where it originated from. Like they know if an Italy strain has been imported, or if they have a Washington strain, they have a Seattle strain, they have a Canadian strain, they have, you know, Toronto, Vancouver. They have strains, but they all have certain signatures. They're not different. Just the little signatures are different. I really believe that it's not it's not mutating. That it's just always been bad. And people aren't getting cured of this. They get better for a little while, but then it does something in our system, and it has a latent period. Quite a long latent period. Depending upon whatever processes make it open or make it activate again. And we don't know how long that latent period is. We know for sure up to 27 days for symptoms. But what about, you know, like, is it... it's tough, right? It's you would almost have to take a healthy person and infect them for science, maybe, and see how it reacts and watch it. But that could take months, right? That's months that we don't have. I'm sure they're doing lab animals. And speaking of animals, you know, the dog is infected as well. But they say the L-type strain is more infectious and more deadly. And it's about 70% of the tests. And then there's an S strain, which is not so bad, I guess. So it's about 30% of the tests. Now that just, I don't know. It could be, but from what the World Health Organization said, that the genome's stable, well, that contradicts that it's mutating. This is interesting. Beijing hospital confirms nervous system infections by novel coronavirus. The nervous system infections. And I kind of get that. Because some of these videos we see with people twitching and spazzing out and just dropping, it looked like it was neurological. It had to have been. And that's scary because that's only confirming the worst. This thing is absolutely fucking vicious. And I believe that it did come out of the laboratory. I don't know if it was... And you know what was it's really coincidence here? This got released at the busiest time in the Chinese New Year. Like, the Chinese New Year is the biggest... It's like Christmas in the West. But it's like 10 Christmases all in one. It really is. It's the massive amount of fucking travel that's happening at that time coming into China. It's the perfect storm. It seems too coincidental that the laboratory's right there. This just happened at fucking like the busiest time of the year. Who knows, right? And that's when it outbroke. That's when the outbreak happened. Right at the beginning of the Chinese New Year. Right when the New Year was starting. Right when the New Year was starting, right? That's, yeah. So, craziness, right? Right when the medical, like everybody knew, they arrested the doctors, right? And they covered it up and kept all the travel going for as long as they could. And people were passing out on the streets. And before they couldn't just hide it anymore. And that's what's going to happen in the United States and everywhere else. They'll just keep going and going until people start dropping in the streets around everywhere, and then shit will just hit the fan.
for a couple of days, see if they get any better.
So at this point, I think we have to believe this is respiratory. Maybe fomites, too.
What's that? Fomites?
It refers to transmission from surfaces. The average person touches their face 2,000 or 3,000 times a day.
2,000 or 3,000 times a day?
3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, elevator buttons, and each other. Those things become fomites.
Is this something we want to release to the press, respiratory and fomites?
And how's the public going to react?
Hey, plastic shark in a movie will keep people from getting in the ocean, but a warning on the side of a pack of cigarettes...
We're going to need to walk the governor through this before we start to freak everybody out.
Yeah. Help. Yeah, but it's all happening. That's a little clip from the movie Contagion. Let's watch another one just because like it just fits the bill. Let's watch a movie clip.
What we need to determine is this. For every person who gets sick, how many other people are they likely to infect? So, for seasonal flu, that's usually about 1. Smallpox, on the other hand, it's over 3. Now, before we had a vaccine, polio spread at a rate between 4 and 6. Now, we call that number the R naught. R stands for the reproductive rate of the virus.
Any ideas what that might be for this?
Okay, and let's do another one. Wait. I got another one. And it fits everything perfect. I don't know why everything's fitting so good. Dun 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 dun. It's mutating. Is it? Oh my god, I'm just like losing it here. How did that come out? Get back in there. What the hell? Back in your home. Sorry about that. Okay, so mutated, right? This is from the movie Contagion.
Whoa. Where did you come from?
It's mutated.
Which way, better or worse?
It's moved into an African HIV/AIDS population. The Durban cluster is highly divergent. We have a new R naught, Ellis. It's not 2 anymore.
Okay, wait.
Tell them what
Another
an
one.
R naught of 2 really means, Dr. Cheever. Teach them some math. No? I'll do it. On day 1, there were 2 people with it, and then there were 4, and then it was 16, and you think you've got it in front of you. But next it's 256, and then it's 65,000, and it's behind you and above you and all around you. In 30 steps, it's 1 billion sick. 3 months. It's a math problem you can do on a napkin, and that's where we're headed.
Craziness, right? It's like a movie. It is like a movie. Just like a movie. So this here's the scientific study that is confirming the mutated version. Well, this is what the study says here anyway. And it says, thus far we found that although the L shape is derived from the S-type, 70% is more prevalent than the S. So there's more of the L type, which is the one that's worse, apparently. And they say blah, blah, blah. Needs more studies. And then it says, they got 73 different viruses isolated at the time of this test was done. Wuhan was 61.6% of the L, and 38% were of the S type. But anyways, they're still saying that that there's a worse one that's going around. And I don't know if there actually is a worse one or if it's just been bad all along. It would. You got to realize that this is probably being coordinated at the highest levels. For media releases, for everything, right? And it's not being conspiracy theory, that it actually is, because it's fucking serious. So, you got the top intelligence people in the world on this right now, figuring out how to address the public and how to. It is. And they're giving us a false sense of security. And everything they just lean into, like one minute, like it all started in China where it was like, oh, it's not worried, don't worry about it. And then the World Health Organization said there's no known cases of human to human transmission, and that it couldn't be passed from humans. And then 2 weeks later, well, all of a sudden it could be passed from humans. And then it wasn't transmissible through the through the air or through vapor, breathing and stuff, but then it was. And then it wasn't transportable on surfaces, but then it was. And then it couldn't infect your pets, but then it did. So right? Come on. You got to take your safety into consideration. That's my goal through this, is to give people the information and the knowledge as best as I can, and even the speculative knowledge, of course, because we really have to consider that. There's left field theories, of course. Like some people are saying that this actually came from people eating bats. That is a left field theory, but then there's a lot of scientific studies that are saying this isn't like anything we've ever seen before, and it's not. And this is behaving like nothing we've ever seen before, and it is. So, as healthcare officials fight to curb the outbreak of coronavirus, the team of researchers from China says a new study shows that CoV is mutating. At least 2 types of the virus are circulating across the countries now. It's tough to believe anything, but let's just take it as, this is worse than what they're saying. That's basically what we can take from that, is, it's worse than what it was. And here's the dog, no bones about it. And this is from CXN. These guys are on top of it. Anyways, pet Pomeranian that repeatedly tested weak positive for the virus that causes COVID-19 most likely got it from its owner, raising questions about whether the animal could serve as a host and infect others, or whether the traces found in its body were even viable. Meaning that, is the dog able to spread it, right? So we don't know that, but basically that's all we can take away from this, and they repeated the tests. The same weak positive resulted from repeated tests that were based in different swabs, indicated that the dog was infected rather than just showing surface contamination. So the dog is actually infected. So what that means is that this virus is being proven more and more on a scientific level that if it can obviously infect other hosts than humans, that is extremely concerning. And it's doing it to dogs. Like, we don't pass viruses to dogs. Dogs can sometimes pass viruses to us through their feces, sometimes, or even through the mouth sometimes, certain bacterial infections, but never a respiratory virus. Or that's what they say it is. They say it's a respiratory virus. I don't know. We're having respiratory symptoms, but we're also having multi-organ failure with those respiratory symptoms. They're not talking about that a whole lot. They're not talking about that your blood pressure drops when you get this. And you get, not that you just get a high fever, but it affects your cardiovascular, or your heart, and it infects. It causes your capillaries and your veins to contract, is what it does. This is affecting the liver and the intestines as well. Because it's being passed through feces. We know that it, they're when they take tests for this, they do rectal swabs. Why would they do rectal swabs? Well, because it's being transmitted through that opening. So that means that, anybody's fingers that they didn't wash when they touched something, if they were infected, somebody on the toilet seat, somebody in the bathroom, somebody in the, on the taps in the bathroom. We see how viral this is, right? But they're not talking about all that stuff. No. The scientists are getting shadowed right now. The information's there. They're just not talking about it. Because why? Well, it's not 100% proven. But guess what? The World Health Organization is using the same studies to base their theories off of. And use their modeling, and not the same studies, but the same type of studies being, preliminary studies. These studies are coming out, and they might have one or two studies that are just, kind of confirm the same thing, but still not 100%. But that's all they got, so that's what they're going on. That's what they're basing their data off of. That's what they're... So why are we not doing it the other way? Right? Like, why are we not looking at the scientific data that says that this thing is absolutely batshit crazy? Because that would scare people. That would panic people, right? When the first report came out that suggested that people was like, oh my god, it's the AIDS virus. No, it's not the AIDS virus. It has the AIDS, or actually it has the HIV-1 glycoprotein amino acids in specific binding receptors that are highly, highly curious, right? And the report was real, but they trashed it. Of course they trashed it because, why would they trash it? Denial. Right? And it's not conspiracy theory shit. It's not. They fucking trashed that report, but it was legit. It was legit. And it still holds true. There haven't been any reports coming out to refute it. Has anybody seen any of those yet? Nope. And you could bet if there was, it would be all over the fucking media. They would juice that baby right till the cows came home. Look what we proved that, but they can't. They can't. Coronavirus is up to 20 times more likely than SARS to bind human cells. 20 times? I think that's a little undershooting it. Because when we look at a coronavirus, right, they're notoriously known for having many spikes around them. Like that's why they're called the coronavirus. Corona meaning crown. They have a crown-like outer surface that has these amino acids and little sensory chains, and they look like spikes along the outside. And those things there are what communicate with our cells. They can hook to our cell, and it makes like a little connection, and then the communication happens or whatever, and then it gets in our cell. And it does it in such a way that this virus does it in such a way that it tricks our cell. Our cell doesn't know it's a bad thing. It really doesn't. It doesn't detect it as being something that it needs to defend itself from. It gets into the cell. It replicates inside the cell. Millions of these little viruses, and then the cell dies and they get released, or the cell explodes. It fills up so much that the cell can't hold it anymore, and it just bursts open, and they go on to infect all these other cells. That's how it happens with this one here. It's a very unique way that it, like, oh yeah, here, look, see all these little fuzzy things around the outsides of the virus. It kind of just looks like a little shady. Well, those there are like amino acid chains under a microscope, right? And they just dangle off there, and they communicate. They're little receptors, right? They have an ability to communicate with cells, and the more languages they can speak, the more cells they can infect. But viruses aren't known to be infect multi-hosts, especially considering that they're saying that this came from a bat. It's got bat DNA. Yes, it does. It has bat DNA in it. We know that. But they're saying it came from a bat. We got it from the bat, and now we're giving it to a dog. The probability of that happening is like astronomically impossible. Let's just say it. Unless this here is in fact, able to communicate with, multiple hosts and multiple cells, not just, we don't know. Maybe it's infecting other cells as well. Right? But it seems to be the method of I'd like to know what cells it infected in the dog. Did it infect the ACE2 receptors? Do dogs have ACE2 receptors? I don't know. But I'd be curious to find out that, right? If it's infecting the same type of cell, if it's infecting a different type of cell, because that speaks a lot too as well, right? Because if this thing can actually communicate with multiple cells, and it sure seems like it can, how did it get those abilities? How did this coronavirus get those abilities? That's impossible. Fucking impossible. On a scientific level, the natural recombination is a possibility. Maybe 0.0001, considering the data that we know now about this. I guess there is still a probability that it could happen, but come on, it just bleeds like fucking, it is. It just stinks of like scandal and cover up and lack of action. It's crazy, right? So World Health Organization underestimates the spread. This is a little while ago. This is last month. But they say now that, the reproduction number is 3.28. All right, 3.28. As funny as that little movie clip was that we watched, or it might not have been funny, but the reproductive value, let's just look at that again really quick, because this is actually, even though it is a movie clip, they accurately describe how an RO or an R naught of 1 is in fact works. So actually they're describing a 2 in this here, a 2, but we're well above a 3, 4, 5, I think. But anyways, this is just a 2.
Tell them what an R naught of 2 really means, Dr. Cheever. Teach them some math, No? I'll do it. On day 1, there were 2 people with it, and then there were 4, and then it was 16, and you think you've got it in front of you. But next it's 256, and then it's 65,000, and it's behind you and above you and all around you. In 30 steps, it's 1 billion sick. 3 months. It's a math problem you can do on a napkin, and that's where we're headed.
Right? So it's actually an accurate model. And that movie's Contagion, by the way. If you want to download it, it's a fucking awesome movie. It really is. And it's very similar to what's happening right now. If you're watching what's going on and you're paying attention to what's going on, you'll laugh at like most of the scenes in this movie, especially the ones where the hand washing scene, where they're telling everybody about the hand washing, and because now that's all they're doing now is telling everybody about the hand washing. I didn't crop that one out. I should have, but it's actually funny because this guy was like freaking out. He's like, "What the hell am I supposed to do? Just wash my goddamn hands?" Yeah. So, anyways, it was actually dramatic, but anyway. And it follows the same fucking storyline about what's portraying on the world stage right now. Oh, Iran is freeing their prisoners. So if that just doesn't go to show, Iran is just not going to free their fucking prisoners, unless there's some shit going down. But it's more of a humanitarian thing, and the fact that they can't keep them in there because the prison guards aren't going to be in there because it is infected. So they just got to let them go. And basically what they might try to do is go in there and, fumigate that place and maybe turn it into, I don't know, a hospital? Possibly. Maybe turn them all into hospitals? It's possible. Could be a move to do that. But, releasing all your prisoners, 3,513 confirmed cases and 107 have died here in Iran. But we know that almost everybody, even the cases that have been coming out of Canada lately in the United States, are all having ties to Iran or Italy. Most of them now. So it's everywhere. And it's going to be a nightmare to try to even keep up with the updates here pretty soon. There'll have to be literally a team of monkeys sitting behind computers 24 hours a day, just constantly updating every minute. Because that's what's going to happen. We're going to get to that point where there's just going to be so many people coming in and so much data fucking coming in, even at the highest levels. If they can absorb all that data, they can't analyze it all fast enough, right? Yeah, we got a lot of issues, right? A lot of issues, and I think a lot of them are being overlooked or just not mentioned. Coronavirus is a growing health problem among countries today. A problem? I guess, yeah, that's a problem. Some patients have reportedly contracted the virus twice. No, they didn't contract it twice. God damn it. I'm not a scientist, and I fucking know 90% without a doubt, probably 95% sure that this thing is going into a dormant state. Or a remissive state, or whatever you want to call it, or if it's going to sleep, but then it comes in whatever biological processes enable it to activate again, but then it, when is this person infectious again? We don't know. There's so many answers that we don't know, and they don't know how to handle this. I'm sure they probably know, but do you think that they could actually tell us? Hell no. I mean, it's probably the most only top officials know, go all way. Yeah, I don't feel like running right now. Rule number 14, cardio. Yeah, Japan is among countries that are the worst hit. Well, I don't know. I'd beg to differ to say Iran is probably the worst place outside of China right now, and then followed by South Korea, followed by Italy, United States, Canada. But it's only going to keep rolling, right? Let's just check the numbers. Let's just go and check. South Korea is confirming 62. South Korea is getting tough. They're got to be running at a test. Those numbers, the amount of people that are here, right, 6,284. That number should double if they're at testing capacity, considering how viral this is. The reproductive value is obviously astronomical, so they got to be running at a test. Is basically my point. Everybody is, and it's not being talked about a whole lot. Italy's got 3,800 cases now. They went it's been 10 days since the outbreak happened in Italy. And you want to know how it happened in Italy? It's a very small northern village, it's like a nice little quaint town. It's very rustic and cultural, highly Catholic, and the doctors still do house calls there. And the doctor went to a house call and went to look on this patient he was bedridden in bed, and it turned out that the person he went to see in bed was in fact infected. The doctor had no warning or knew about the situation. His wife, who was also home there, who opened the door for him and let him upstairs, was also infected at the time. And that's how Italy started. Then they started testing people, and well, lo and behold, fucking everybody was infected. And they know that now. Like the place is quarantined and it's locked down. They got 148 deaths there. Those are huge numbers. Those aren't adding up. That's like a 7% fatality rate. That's way higher than what they're saying. All right, but we don't know. The data's so skewed everywhere. We don't know the latency period. You know, there's so much data that we don't know. But we know that it's actually, you know, it's ripping through places like wildfire. And Iran, they got a big problem there as well. 107 deaths. Like Italy, 144 deaths. That's more than South Korea. South Korea's got to have more than 40 deaths. Oh my fuck. Like, see, a lot of people don't want to be scaring people either. You know, if let's just say there was like hundreds and hundreds of deaths, right? Do you think the government's going to come out and disclose that? If it would hurt like economics or economy and all these things that they might want to try to keep going, that they don't want to shut their borders down. Everybody's just trying to hold on to any little bit of information that they can use to as an excuse to keep borders open and keep things running. That's not working. I firmly believe that, you know, it's well, wow, Italy. That's Iran's got 107. We're not really sure about the numbers in Iran. There's a lot there. Like most of the council and government politicians are infected. There's actually, I think, 50 or 60 of them confirmed now. And there's one person that I'm not sure who he was, but he's like really high level person, and he's been moved to a hospital in Iran. Germany, no deaths yet. France has got 7 deaths. Japan, 6 deaths. Spain has got 3 deaths. US 233 now with 12 deaths. Switzerland, 1 death. The home base of the World Health Organization, Geneva, Switzerland. Singapore, nothing. UK, they got 1. Hong Kong's got 2. Sweden, nothing. Yeah, see, Canada's up to 46 now. No deaths yet in Canada. We do have community transmission confirmed in Canada now, in Toronto and Vancouver. You know, and the list just keeps going on for countless countries adding, you know, coming on board with this now. And you know, we see all these places with 1, right? But you got to realize that it's capacity for testing. It's a lot of factors that are coming into play is why those numbers are still low. But the fact that they even have 1, they probably have more. You can guarantee that. If there's 1, there's more. We know that. We can just assume that to say it's a safe bet. But anyway, this video is getting a little long. I'm gonna cut it off here. I will start up another one. I'm gonna grab a snack and grab something to eat. My voice is getting a little feeling hoarse or whatever. Okay, before we go, the Seattle in the nursing home, the Kirkland nursing home, a bunch of people didn't go to work, and they just they're having a big problem there. They got auxiliary staff in there now from other places, but yeah, they just left the patients in there, and staff refused to go to work. And you know, I could see why. You know, if you got family at home and stuff like that, yeah, right. And Oregon quarantines dozens fucking hospital staff, dozens. And that's just one place. Like, this is everywhere. Like, you couldn't believe the amount of medical people that are infected with this, because it's probably in the hospitals. Do not go to a hospital unless you absolutely have to. I feel bad for the people that are in patients in hospitals already now that don't have a choice but to be there, you know, and it's possibly spreading through these hospitals. We can only assume that because that's what it did any other time it got in the hospitals, right? But anyways, appreciate you guys for watching this. 100% share it. I don't care if you like it, but just share it, get the word out. And if you want to stick around, I'm definitely going to be doing something shortly again as well. So until then, take care and be aware. Peace.